You need to see it in the physical world. That's why I think that. Oh yes, of course. There are speed questions involved too that have to be separated out. But I think the empathetic mirroring is why prompts and the use of a blackboard are so effective. Well, let's see. Oh yes, there is one more thing by way of the tools, and that has to do with the use of slides. I repeat, I think they're for exposing ideas, not for teaching ideas, but that's what we do in a job talk or a conference talk. We expose ideas, we don't teach them. So let me tell you a little bit about my views on that. I remember once I was in Terminal A at Logan Airport. I'd just come back from a really miserable conference, and the flight was really horrible. It was one of those that feels like an unbalanced washing machine. And for the only time in my life, I decided to stop on my way to my car and have a cup of coffee and relax a little bit. And as I was there for a few minutes, someone came up to me and said, "Are you Professor Winston?" "I think so," I said. I don't know, I guess I was trying to be funny. In any event, he said, "I'm on my way to Europe to give a job talk. Would you mind critiquing my slides?" "Not at all," I said. "You have too many and they have too many words." "How did you know?" he said, thinking perhaps I'd seen a talk of his before. I hadn't. My reply was, because it's always true. There are always too many slides, always too many words. So let me show you some extreme examples of how not to use slides. Well, for this demonstration, I need to be way over here. And when I get over here, then I can start to say things like, one of the things you shouldn't do is read your transparency. One of the things you shouldn't do is read your transparency. The words to these, then everything I read a previous time, I'm not licensed to say because it's not on the slide. I'm not reading my slides anymore, but I'm saying what was written on the slides in a previous example. So what else can we do to simplify this? Well, we can get rid of the logos. We don't need them. Simplification. What else can we do? Get rid of the title. Now I want to talk to you about some rules for slide preparation. I'm telling you the title. It doesn't have to be up there. By reducing the number of words on the slide, I'm allowing you to pay more attention to me and less to what's written on the slide. I mentioned it before. We have only one language processor, and we can either use it to read stuff or to listen to the speaker. And so if we have too many words on the slide, it forces people in the audience to read this stuff and not listen. A student of mine did an experiment a few years ago. He taught some students some web-based programming ideas. Half the information was on slides. He said the other half. And then for a control group, he reversed it. And the question was, what did the subjects, that is to say, freshmen in his fraternity, what did the subjects remember best? What he said or what they read on the slide? And the answer is what they read on the slide. When their slides have a lot of material on it, they don't pay attention to the speaker. In fact, in the after-action report, one of the subjects said, "I wish you hadn't talked so much. It was distracting." Well, the last item is eliminate clutter. Now, here's some clutter. No reason even for those bullets. So the too many words problem is a consequence of a crime Microsoft has committed by allowing you to use fonts that are too small. So you should all have a sample slide like this that you can use to determine what the minimum font size is that's easily legible. Shiru, what do you think of those?
Which size is right?
What's that?
Did you ask them which size is right?
Yeah, minimum maybe.
40 or 50?
Yeah, he says 40 or 50. I think that's about right. 35 is beginning to get too small. Not necessarily because you can't read it, but because you're probably using it to get too many words on the slide. What other crimes do we have? Well, we have the laser pointer crime. And for that, I really, in the old days, when we didn't have laser pointers, we used wooden ones, and people would go waving these things around, and pretty soon it became almost like a baton twirling contest. So here's what I recommended in the old days for dealing with this kind of pointer. This example of the use of a prop. Jim Glass up there saw this talk about 20 years ago and said, oh yeah, I remember that talk. That's the one where you broke the pointer. It's amazing how props tend to be the things that are remembered. Well, now we don't have physical pointers anymore. We've got laser pointers. And it's a wonder more people aren't driven into epileptic fits over this sort of stuff. But here's what tends to happen. Look at that. It's a lovely recursive picture, and I can become part of it by putting that laser beam right on the back of my head up there. And what do you see? You see the back of my head. I have no eye contact, no engagement, nothing. I was sitting with a student watching a talk one day, and she said, you know what? We could all leave, and he wouldn't know. So what happens when you use a laser pointer? You can't use a laser pointer without turning your head and pointing it at something. And when you do that, you lose contact with the audience. You don't want to do it. So what do you do if you need to identify something in your image and you don't want to point at it with a laser? This is what you do. Put a little arrow on there and say, now look at that guy number one, at the end of arrow number one. You don't need to have a laser pointer to do that. The too heavy crime. When people ask me to review a presentation, I ask them to print it out and lay it out on a table. When they do that, it's easy to see whether the talk is too heavy, too much text, not enough air, not enough white space, not enough imagery. This is a good example of such a talk. Way too heavy. The presenter has taken advantage of small font sizes to get as much on the slide as he wanted. Lots of other crimes here, but the too heaviness, the fact that it's too heavy is what I wanted to illustrate. So here, by contrast, is another talk, one I gave a few years ago. It wasn't a deeply technical talk, but I show it to you because there's air in it. It's mostly pictures of things. There are 3 or 4 slides that have text on them, but when I come to those, I give the audience time to read them. And they're there because they might have some historical significance. The first slide with a lot of text on it is an extraction from the 1957, from the proposal for the 1957 AI conference at Dartmouth. Extraordinarily interesting event, and that historical extraction from the proposal helps drive that point home. What else have we got here? Oh yeah, your vocabulary word for the day. This is an apax legomenon. What that means is, this is the kind of slide you can get away with exactly once in your presentation. This is a slide that got some currency some years ago because it shows the complexity of governing in Afghanistan by showing how impossibly complex it is. It's something you and the audience can't understand, and that's the point. But you can't have many of these. You can have one per work, one per presentation, one per paper, one per book. That's what apax legomenon is, and this is an example of it. Well, I've shown you some crimes, and so you might be asking, do these crimes actually occur? So they do. There's the hands in the pockets crime. There's a crime in time and place selection here. This is how you get to the Bartos Theater. First thing you do is you get down these steps over at the Media Lab. Then you cross this large open space. Then you turn right down this corridor. At this point, whenever I go in there, I wonder if there are torture implements around the corner. And then when you get in there, you get into this dark, gloomy place. So it's well named when they call it the Bartos Theater, because it's a place where you can watch a movie, but it's not a place where you can give a talk. Now, on a subject of does it happen, here's a talk I attended a while back in Stata. Notice that the speaker is far away from the slides. The speaker's using a laser pointer. And you say to me, well, what's happening here? It's, by the way, the 80th slide in the presentation. Notice that it's dense with words. This is the first of 10 conclusion slides. So what's the audience reaction? That's the sponsor of the meeting. He's reading his email. This is the co-sponsor of the meeting. He's examining the lunch menu. What about this person? This person looks like he's paying attention, but just because it's a still picture, if you were to see a video, what you would see is something like this. So yeah, it does happen. Well, now that's a quick review of tools. Now I want to talk about some special cases. We could talk a little bit about informing, or to say it another way, doing what I'm doing now. But I'll just say a few words about that. In that kind of presentation, you want to start with a promise, like I did for this hour that we're going through now. But then it comes to the question of how do you inspire people? I've given this talk for a long time, and a few years ago, our department chairman said, would you please give this talk to new faculty and be sure to emphasize what it takes to inspire students. And strangely, I hadn't thought about that question before, so I started a survey. I talked to some of my incoming freshman advisees, and I talked to senior faculty and everything in between about how they've been inspired. What I found from the incoming freshmen is that they were inspired by some high school teacher who told them they could do it. What I found in the senior